Good evening and welcome to another scene in the Living World of Darkness, the Camarilla Anarch venue. Tonight we have a scene where the Master of Parties is currently, he's just received a very new person in the city who has recently met and promised an introduction to the sheriff, who they are currently waiting for. In a this is it's a fairly, it's in a house. It's a privately owned house, but there's no one yet home. Um, but there is a couple of people in the entrance to the house. There's sitting some guys, but Jasmine was just let in, and they're currently waiting at a fairly nice table at the home. And Theodore is sitting and reading his newspaper, he's just. I'm quite sure he will be quite with us very soon. Don't worry.
Okay, yes, Jasmine is sitting there. She's not looking at the phone screen so much as both hands are on the mobile phone. She seems to be moving it around in her hands, possibly a sign of nervousness. It's the phone screen isn't actually lit, but she doesn't seem to be able to leave it alone.
As some time passes, about 3 SUVs show up at this private home. What would you say? Does this private home have like an entryway, like a gate that opens up? Is it like that kind of? Fancy?
No, they can park on the street. That's not a problem.
Yeah, they basically all park on the street. About pretty much every SUV looks like it's filled. If you look outside, at least, it's filled to the brim with heavily armed individuals. As the door slides open and the sheriff steps out in his usual formal casual attire, his jacket and red tie, his black clovers and rather expensive looking. It's almost like mixing a leather jacket and then every single highly expensive office uniform you've seen. It's almost like he's casting some big event. And his hair is combed back and seems to go down somewhat, like about a quarter or third of the way down his neck before he makes his way up to this private home, shotgun in hand.
The door is opened, and a person you, Spillane, have not seen before opens it. Relatively young man, with a bit of an accent on him. Just, Monsieur Spillane, please. And he just invites you in.
Okay, Jasmine's a slightly more average attractive blonde. I mean, we're only looking appearance free here, but she's well presented. She's wearing a reasonably smart jacket over a shirt and trousers. She looks like probably not necessarily her usual attire. She looks like she may have dressed up for the occasion. Yeah, she'll rise and curtsy slightly because vampires and being new.
You can also see this guy.
Yes.
Inside the room, and you'll just nod.
Something important to note is that when Sam walks in, he looks presentable, but you can see anyone who spent any time as a kindred can't see ash on there. He seems like he's dusted himself off almost. Like there's still a bit there, but you can make it out, like those faint ambers. He's clearly been out he's been out on the slaughter.
I see your job keeps you busy, my sheriff. Please, I have quite a few things I need to discuss with you, but we have a new citizen, loyal member of the Camarilla, and, well, a person I think you should be introduced to, given the times we are living in.
Sam looks to her, not his jovial, chipper self, even remotely. His eyes look rather sharp as his gaze slowly turns over to this woman, and he almost he tilts his shotgun up and down as if to kind of point at her and then kind of shrug it off and say, "Can anyone vouch for her on that?"
I can. I was, what shall we say, thorough and quite intrusive. I apologize again. But you realize that some of us have a certain insight into the minds of others.
I'm pleased to have someone who can vouch for me. She says she clearly being confronted by armed men is not a normal experience for her. She looks quite understandably slightly nervous at this. She also looks quite harmless. She's a relatively slight, relatively small young woman with no obvious weapons, and there's a man with a shotgun. So clearly not exactly putting her at her ease here. But she'll say, I'm very pleased to meet you, Sheriff. I'm sorry to be intruding on your valuable time, but I thought it was important that we should be introduced.
Alright, well, that's good, I suppose. What's a dainty little thing like you doing in New York? This place is a war zone.
Yes, I'm afraid my visit was very badly timed. I came here just as everything started to go wrong. Shall we say, it wasn't a war zone when I started travelling. But my sire is now in Europe, and I have nowhere else to go to, and a desire to help if I can.
Well, like it or not, that's what you're going to be doing. We don't exactly have options here.
I mean, I'm quite good at sort of getting places I'm not supposed to be. I'm not exactly a brawler, but I'm very good at sort of getting into places and things. Hopefully I'll be able to be of use to you.
Oh, I think I could use someone like you. What clan you from?
Clan Toreador.
And you say you can get into places you're not supposed to be.
Yes, particularly one of my favourite hobbies is to parkour.
He kind of looks to Theodore as if to double check this woman's validity and capability.
Well, I believe that she will have ample opportunities to, well, use her particular abilities. Would you not agree, my sheriff?
I think we could use someone like her, especially with what I've got in store.
That is good. You see, when I met her, I was about to give her your number, but I would not do so under such dire circumstances. If she is to get in contact with you, or you would to contact her, I would leave it to your discretion to give her any sort of contact information.
You made the wise decision.
I have my moments.
So, Les, how long has it been since you embrace?
6 years.
You look like you've never faced down a Sabbat before.
I have never faced down a Sabbat before.
6 whole years, and that ain't happened. Well, I suppose it's the first time for everything.
My sire, with respect, was quite old-fashioned. It's taken me quite a long time to fledge.
Ah, yes. Well, I was slightly more of a modernist, but I can definitely respect the old ways of doing things. But forgive me if I'm not more polite, but I'm a bit on a tight schedule here.
Then please, by all means, put me to work for the Camarilla. I didn't come here just to be of no use to you. If I can start doing things to help to gain status, I'm at the bottom of the totem pole at the moment. I need to prove myself to the city.
Yeah, you do. But you don't need to worry about that. I've got a few things coming up soon, which I think I could use someone of your specific set of skills for.
Please do not hesitate to call on me. I make part of my living as a photographer. I'm quite good at finding my way to places.
Interesting. You might even be of more use to me than some of my own hounds, which I'm not sure if it is impressive or outright depressing. I'll call you when I've got something for you.
Thank you.
But first, you're going to tell me exactly where you live, and some of my friends are going to escort you there to make sure you don't find yourself in any trouble you can't handle. Our borders are not well defined right now.
I've got just a small apartment down near the river. I was lucky enough to find a basement apartment. It's a little bit damp, but it does me well enough.
Alright, well, if you're fortunate, the Sabbat probably don't know you're in the city yet, so you'll be an unknown factor to them. Which is good, because it means they won't know that you're just going to be a kindred on site.
Well, I'm quite sure that if your men were to accompany her, she would be found out quite soon, but perhaps they can keep a bit of distance.
Aye, and my men ain't exactly kindred themselves. I doubt the Sabbat know every single individual that I employ.
Quite so. Well, Yasmin, it has been an absolute pleasure, my dear.
Thank you very much, Theodore. I'm indebted to your good offices.
Well, we will speak on this later. The first and foremost, we must think of our safety and the well-being of all of us, and of course the Camarilla in these trying times. But please, have a good evening. The sheriff and I will have a word in private.
Aye.
Okay. In that case, one last thing before I go. She fishes into her jacket and pulls out a small business card. It's got 3 different mobile phone numbers on it. Please, this will help you in contacting me should you choose to use one of these networks.
I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. Stay safe, keep your head down, and for the love of God, if you're going to do something significant, tell me first.
As soon as I have a means of contacting you, I assuredly will.
I'll give you a call.
With that, she'll curtsy quite respectfully and move towards the door, still facing you, moving gracefully backwards till she's out of sight. Sort of old world vampire style, almost as if she had a very old-fashioned sire.
No, Sam bows to her as well, this time perhaps now that the new one is leaving, he feels a bit more comfortable, perhaps, that he's spent some time talking outside of a combat situation. He is being less of a dick, less of that drill sergeant. And yeah, he'll see you out, and you'll be escorted back to your haven by one of the SUVs, and they will escort you outright to your door, although not all of them, mainly just 2 of them. Yeah.
It's, as she said, it's a shabby little basement flat. But then, when you're just starting in a city, we can't all live like princes.
Nope. But it's a good way to keep your head down. And his aunt thugs, because that's what they are, will tell him exactly where she lives. So just in case things do go to shit and she is a traitor like half the city apparently is, he knows where to go looking.
Yeah.
But we
She seemed really harmless and really lovely.
yeah.
I
That's
took
the
the
most
harmless merit.
dangerous people who look like. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
Every traitor ever.
meanwhile, back at the apartment, Theodore and Samuel will just he will just look to the person that greeted you in the door. He will just close the doors into the room, and Theodore will just go over and make sure that the blinds are closed. And he will just look at you and just say, "So, it is worse than previously thought."
Things ain't looking good. We've taken back the hospital, but we've lost the chantry, and now I haven't heard back from Ghost.
Concerning. Well, I do appreciate your skepticism for her and, well, for me, I suppose. If everyone's a traitor, how can you truly trust anyone?
Ain't
You are,
yourself, but
well, you are a commendable individual and seem quite capable. I appreciate this. So, he looks around, checks it again. I will show you something that is quite disconcerting, but done to people I trust. I hope you will appreciate that. And although it is, of course, not a necessarily binding or absolute proof that I am who I say I am, it will at least show a degree of trust I hope you will appreciate. And he will change his appearance. You will see first the bandaged person, but he will begin to take it off. And this thing will just sit down and look at him.
God, I'm glad he didn't do that to poor Jasmine.
I never get tired of that image. Christ.
And he just looks at you and just says, "I'm truly sorry to do things like this, but you do understand now why I keep myself somewhat concealed, more than usual for Nosferatu."
On the contrary, I appreciate the honesty.
Well, this is what I really look like, and in the future, if the two of us are to trust each other, we need a system where we can confirm that it is indeed the two of us speaking and no one else. I will not pry, I will not intrude into your mind unless you give me no other choice, but I propose a word or a code phrase that has a specific, what shall we say, response.
Something obscure enough not to come up in normal conversation, but something that's memorable for both of us.
Indeed. Imposters and traitors are everywhere, so we need to be careful, of course. Normally I would not need such things, but these are by no means normal circumstances.
Sam will take a moment to consider what possible phrases would really connect them both. And kind of considers in what ways they might be similar, but it's also not flagrantly obvious. They're both men of station. Sam's not particularly old, and this man does appear quite old. but Sam is still older than most of the neonates here. Hmm.
Well, one of them could be bonfire. Not really what you want to think of. And the return phrase, well, could be midnight.
Although I'm afraid that one might come up in a novel conversation around the appointed time, considering our nocturnal nature.
Quite
How
so.
about... Fire stick. It's another term used to relate to firearms. Or I have a blunt and vulgar term for them.
Fire stick. Bonfire. That could work. I would have... Well,
It's a term that exists, but isn't one that's likely to come up in current conversation due to the fact that there are more frequently used alternatives.
his appearance changes again, and he's just... I hope that is enough. Well, sleep-depriving visuals. But this lady, I was going to tell you about her, but of course you are quite stretched for time at the moment, as we all are. I believe I may have found another one.
Another one.
Not affiliated, I think. Keeps to herself, but apparently I've done a bit of big digging in some of Samantha's files. I was able to acquire that she had noticed a young woman. She had done a preliminary things on her. She has been to Elysium once, it seems, but not introduced herself in any way. Not introduced herself to the prince, which, given the nature of, well, the current state of affairs, well, it is perhaps not what's going to happen, but we need to clarify who this person is. I would be glad to facilitate a contact with her. Would you like to be present?
Very
well.
I know your vetting process is very thorough, but I would like to meet each individual in person before I intend to involve them in my affairs.
I will set up a meeting as soon as I can, and, well, hopefully she will show up. We will have to pay her a visit at her place of residence, if we can find that. And I will do the same as I did with poor Jasmine. I will ask, well, try to pry things from her minds. If I dig deep enough, I will be able to ascertain whether or not she's loyal or affiliated with the Sabbat. And, well, that is a direct way of getting the answers we seek, but, well, quite rude and quite light, shall we say. But we cannot stand on ceremony at this point.
I ain't heard from anyone about Harlem, in fact. I'm going to go concerned that it might be a total loss. In which case, I've got problems, and I'm going to have to start forking over money to the Italians.
Well, we are in this together. I may be able to assist in some ways, but I am not quite sure. My direct input is not in crime, you see, but I am beginning to, well, take the necessary precautions for certain eventualities. I hope that it will not be necessary, but well, I'm preparing a sort of temporary refuge if things are going to get much worse than they are now. You will have a spot, but we will talk of this later.
Aye. Oh. It's always good to see a friendly face in these troubling times, so I'm glad you invited me over. But I believe duty is calling me once again.
Quite so. Quite so. See you do not. Is there anything required for such things? A weapon, or are you quite, well, equipped?
If there's one thing I don't need more of, it would be guns, my good friend, but I appreciate the offer.
Well, I was thinking of a blade, maybe.
Well, it depends on the blade. I've always dealt in knives myself.
Well, I do have a few, but I might be able to acquire something a little more exotic. But I will have to see in that. I have also many things to see, but I do appreciate you coming around. We must at least hold up some sort of semblance of order, even in the most troubling times. But, my sheriff, I will contact you as soon as possible when I contact this person.
Aye. I'll get out of your hair now. It's good seeing you again. He'll bow graciously.
And the Master of Heartbeats will do the same.
And with that, Sam will take his leave and with his group of armed folks will ride off into the distance as across the city many, many more gunshots can be heard, which will continue to ring into the night and many more.
Well, that we will end our scene. Thank you very much, players, for playing, and watchers for watching. Good night.